On a strange day in New York, while Peter Parker was busy balancing his double life between school and protecting the city, he received an unexpected notification on his phone from an unlikely source, Doctor Strange. Peter knew that any communication from Strange meant something big was about to happen. Out of curiosity, Peter swung through the skyscrapers until he reached Doctor Strange's sanctum sanctorum. When he entered, the room was filled with mysterious energy. Doctor Strange greeted him with a slight smile and said, "Peter, I'm working on a scientific experiment, and I think you might be interested in participating." Peter was surprised and asked, "A scientific experiment? What does magic have to do with science?" Doctor Strange replied, "Some experiments go beyond the limits of traditional science, and there are things the ordinary mind cannot comprehend. This experiment can take you on a journey to the past. You may be able to see some things from a different perspective." Peter felt excited, but he didn't fully know what to expect. Doctor Strange began manipulating the threads of time, and colorful lights surrounded Peter, taking him far away through a tunnel of time. Suddenly, he found himself in a familiar yet strange place, New York City, but as it looked a few years ago. The people, the cars, and the buildings all looked just as he remembered when he was a younger teenager. At that moment, he saw someone standing on the opposite sidewalk. When Peter approached, he couldn't believe what he saw. It was him, but younger. This wasn't just a coincidence. Peter had gone back to the past and found his younger self, who hadn't yet discovered that he would become Spider-Man. Peter cautiously approached, trying to talk to his younger self without scaring him. He said in a calm tone, "Hey, can I talk to you for a moment?" The younger Peter looked at him suspiciously and said, "Who are you? And why do you look like me?" Peter, knowing he had to be careful, said, "You won't believe me, but I'm you, from the future." Young Peter was shocked, but he felt a bit curious. "The future? How is that possible?" young Peter asked. Peter decided to prove it. He performed a few Spider-Man moves, jumping between walls with ease. Young Peter was amazed and asked, "How did you do that? What happens to me in the future?" The two of them sat together on the roof of a building, and Peter began explaining to his younger self how he had been bitten by a radioactive spider, giving him superpowers. But he wasn't here just to tell a story. There was a danger looming. Peter knew something bad was about to happen in the city, and this experience wasn't just a trip to the past, but a chance to learn a valuable lesson. While the two were talking, the city suddenly shook. In the distance, Peter saw a giant creature emerging between the buildings. It was a massive, robotic-like monster destroying everything in its path. Peter realized that this creature hadn't been part of his original timeline. This was a chance to change things for the better. Peter turned to his younger self and said, "We need to team up to stop this monster. I'll teach you how to use your powers quickly." Despite his fear, young Peter agreed. Peter began teaching him how to use his webs and how to swing safely between buildings. With each training session, the young Peter's confidence grew. As the monster drew closer, the two were ready. They swung together between the buildings, shooting webs to slow the creature's advance. The battle was intense, but thanks to the teamwork between the two Peters, they managed to stop the monster before it could destroy more of the city. After the battle ended, they sat together on a tall rooftop, looking over the city they had saved. Young Peter felt proud and said, "If you're my future, I'm glad I'll become a hero." Peter smiled and said, "But remember, being a hero doesn't mean everything will be easy. The decisions you make will affect your future and the future of others." This experience was meant to remind you of how important your choices are. Before the journey ended, Doctor Strange appeared before them and said, "The time has come, Peter. You must return to your own time." Young Peter bid farewell to his future self with a hopeful look. Then Doctor Strange took Peter back to the present. When Peter woke up in Doctor Strange's lab, he felt like he had learned a profound lesson. Peter returned to present-day New York, but now he knew that every small decision he made could shape his future and the future of others.